Hello, Wear Many Hats listeners. We've got another interesting one here for you today. Today, we're going to be talking about technology as an enabler within the workspace, specifically facilities management, but I'm sure that we'll probably delve into other areas. Absolutely fantastic to be joined today by Sam Farrant, who is the head of digital workplace at TransACT. He's also been involved in technology for many, many years. From a facilities management perspective, so he can really give some significant guidance on how the future may look from a technical perspective. Hello, Sam. How you doing?
Good. And nice to meet you, and thanks for inviting me.
That's okay. Did you like the intro? Did I get it right?
Yeah, all good.
You sure?
Yeah.
Positive?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good stuff. How's your day been?
Good. Yeah, lots of meetings.
Yeah? How many?
4.
4? God. Do you have any beers, or was it just coffee?
Maybe.
Only 4 at each meeting.
No, we had one at lunch, that was it.
No, fair enough.
Yeah, I didn't want to come up. I didn't want to turn up pissed. So
no, fair enough. Leave it. So where have you come from? Where have you come from today?
So office is based in Farringdon.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where we are most of the time. A lot of our customers are based in the city.
Right. Okay. Cool. Well, listen. I'll tell you what. I don't want to talk too much because this show's all about you, Sam. Tell us a little bit about your career, how that dovetails into facilities management and the workplace, and tell us how you started this journey, where you're at now, and where you may be in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So been in technology for 25 years now. Started life as a sound engineer, doing sort of productions, events, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I then got into what's called the audiovisual sort of integration industry, which was really the sort of first exposure into facilities. So, it's workplace technology.
Yep.
I mean, the term prop tech now, and I think is very broad. The lines are blurred where, audiovisual used to be audiovisual, IT used to be IT, but now you're seeing those areas sort of now blend so much more, as a company, TransACT, they're a very broad range of services. We're providing smart technologies like access control, occupancy sensors, resource booking, traditional audiovisual, IT, sort of aggregating data, hosting data. So we're really looking at the whole thing, really, for a day in the life of an employee, essentially.
Okay. So a large part of your role at the minute is helping to facilitate that transition from a traditional work environment into that sort of post-COVID environment
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, obviously the key challenges at the moment are return to work.
Yep.
The experience, within the workplace to entice people to come back. ESG is obviously high on everybody's agenda as well.
Yeah, it is very much so, yeah.
Very much our approach is around how do we provide technology to benefit the organization, the users, looking at specifically those journeys and how do we get people from A to B with the least amount of barriers and make that as seamless as possible. That's really the key focus, and we work very closely with facilities companies, front of house, guest services providers, security teams that actually let's make it a great environment in which to be in.
Yeah.
Without having to queue up and have bottlenecks effectively.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So it must be quite complex then, really, sort of, because every building's different, isn't it? Everything has a different requirement.
Yeah.
Is there a specific approach you take in terms of dealing with it, or?
My approach in the business in general is very much looking at actually the processes and the policies of the organisation.
Right.
And what you'll find, I mean, we work with a lot of facilities companies, but also end clients as well, predominantly sort of enterprise. And I think, our approach is the technology is the enabler.
Yes.
Really, the technology's out there, and it's moving at such a pace now that I don't think it's a case of can you or can't you do it from a technology standpoint, but it's actually really understanding of how you need it to work for you, and that is, as you say, is very different for every customer, and it's very interesting because you're learning all the time.
Yeah.
You are advising. People do, all different ways of managing their properties. How they move people around. But in particular, we also find that those customers differ within regions as well.
Really?
So the systems that you might have in London might be completely different to that in Manchester. let alone between countries. And we're talking big enterprise customers there. So
Really?
I think one of the key focuses now is consolidation and looking at technologies that have an open integration sort of methodology, because you need to be able to flex to that environment. So certainly our approach and our advice to our customers is looking at the whole end-to-end process, so we can specify the right technologies. I've seen so many large organizations sort of go down a dead end because they've invested in one particular technology that they've spent lots of time and money, and then a year or so later, and then looking at another technology that cannot integrate with the one that they've already adopted. So that's really important as well. And that's where the process, and also it's the adoption. So once you've deployed the technology and you made sure that it suits the processes and provides the right benefits, etc., the adoption is so important. And I think that is often overlooked. There was a stat, I think it was around 2 years ago, that said 70% of technology deployments fail within a workplace because of adoption. So too many.
I can understand that actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I've worked for businesses where they've either implemented a new IT system or a new CRM system or whatever, and if it's not done properly, I think people tend to get quite exhausted of it quite quickly.
They do. Yeah.
And then they're just like, I'm not using it. It's making everything harder. I can't be bothered. And I do understand that, But just to go back on something that you said earlier, which I found really interesting. You said that the type of technology or the type of things that you would use would differ depending on the region.
Yep.
Can you go into that a little bit more?
Absolutely.
The reason I ask is because I think that our listeners would find it really interesting. Because we've got a lot of listeners in London, but I'm sure we've got some in Manchester and some in Birmingham and things like that. What drives that, and how does it play out?
Certainly within regions, people generally have their own way of doing things.
Right.
You also have some individuals, departments within organisations who go off and do their own thing, whether it's regional or whether it's within the same region but just different buildings. A great example of that, access control. Very common that a large organisation will have a different access control system in different buildings and different regions. So there are platforms that act as sort of middleware, it's called, that will sit on top of those access control systems and bring them all together. I've also, quite a common one is visitor management, where you've got some buildings that are simple, same companies that simple signing in book, but then some might have adopted a visitor management system. Some might have a different one in a different building. So you do get a lot of this sort of mixed platforms and ways of doing things across different estates.
Is that because in different regions they're perhaps more laid back, less? I mean, London's very busy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everybody's going at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
I think it's a mix. It could be in terms of budgets. It could be in terms of priorities.
Right.
So
it's not necessarily individuals. It's more about the business as a whole. So I don't mean individuals. I mean, I don't know, for example, Northerners like me. It's not because I'm Northern and because I've grown up slightly differently. It's just because of the environment.
It could be all of those things, effectively.
Really?
It could be that literally an office in Manchester have decided that's what they want to do, just gone off and done their own thing.
Right.
Whereas in London, and it might be at a time, before you might have a central team who manage that.
Yeah.
To ensure that everything's aligned. But I can give you so many different examples. I won't name names.
I find that really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's a large property company we deal with here in London where they have got a mixed estate of access control. Yeah. And that, to be fair, they did have one system and now they're migrating across to another. Right. But to migrate across to a new system, to transition is you're talking a long time. There's a lot of complexity. There's a lot of cost to it. Course, yeah. So at the moment, they then so they're doing it in stages. So two of their estates has this new access control system that they want to deploy. Yeah. Whereas the remaining estates of 80 estates still have that old legacy system. Right. So sometimes it can be a transition, but sometimes it can be just through choice that people have been able to do their thing, particularly within that location.
Okay. So what's your view on smart buildings then? Because we've had varying opinions on the show with regards to smart buildings and how they operate. Some people will say, look, the technology is just not there yet for it to work as you would expect it to. Yeah. Other people are like, oh, it's great. What's your view? Where are you at?
Of course, I'm biased.
Yes.
I am absolutely all for smart buildings, and it's something I'm very passionate about. That prop tech area particularly is something that I enjoy. I absolutely believe that the technology is there.
Right.
Again, it's adoption and it's processes, and you'll probably hear me keep banging on about processes throughout this interview, but it is so important because I think there's a lot of organizations that think, well, let's commit to the technology and all our prayers are answered, and just think, well, the technology is going to sort it, but it's not going to teach you how to use it. Even coming in here today, it's not your domain, but it was very interesting that actually let's call it the smart technology that has been deployed in this building isn't actually working. The experience isn't great because nobody knows what they're doing, and then they're doing it and it's not working, and then they're having to ask the receptionist again, and the receptionist is then having to come round and do it for them.
Yes.
And then I come up to the fourth floor, then I have to do the same thing again. I'm queuing to wait for heads and shoulders behind a desk, whereas actually I should have been able to just scan and go.
Yeah.
So you've got to look at all of those things, and I advise anybody who's looking at any type of sort of smart technology deployment, go back to basics and think about what am I trying to achieve here, and just take a common sense approach and just make it easy. So the answer downstairs is, well, how do I ensure that somebody's informed that I had an invite, it had all the details of where I'm going, how to get there, who I'm going to see, how to contact them in the event I'm running late. And then when I do arrive, I clearly know what I need to do and I can scan and go.
Yeah.
Rather than arriving and then not really knowing and then typing something in which doesn't work. So it's looking at that whole journey and remove barriers.
Yeah.
And I don't mean necessarily, security barriers. I mean, generally, as looking at the whole process and, how do I get someone from A to B as easy as possible?
So scan a QR code, it's got all the information loaded on.
Absolutely. It might not just be a QR code. It could be an app or it could be all sorts of things. But, and then of course,
an RFID reader, something.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, but also, that's the user journey benefits. But, in terms of sustainability and being proactive and know how the building's performing, when something's you can proactively monitor and know something's going to break. Yeah. Certainly have a good indication where you've got things like digital twins. So you could map an entire building services like a BMS system digitally, and then you can monitor food devices, IoT devices. You can then monitor each of those endpoints to look at the behavior. So if a light bulb's gone out, if the air conditioning's broke, a fan coil unit or something, where you can monitor and you can then proactively react to that incident. And by having a digital twin, you've then got a digital model knowing exactly how that building's working, exactly where all those endpoints, those systems are. So you can then go in and fully understand how to resolve that issue.
Right.
So, and then there's the sustainability piece with trigger points. Yeah. Like if we look at the journey, what I've sort of mentioned and how we get someone from A to B. But actually, if we then, book people in advance, whether it's employees, visitors, whoever they may be, knowing who's going to come in when, well, then I don't need to have the air conditioning or the heating running all day, every day, or the lights or the screens on.
Yeah.
They only come on when that room is booked. And actually, do I do it just at that period that it's booked? Or do I wait? Because it may be booked, but I might not turn up. That actually, the trigger point is as soon as I scan to get through that door, my smartphone.
Everything comes on.
Everything comes on. Right, and then you've got the data then as well.
So technology is at a point where it can physically do that.
It does all of that. That's
TV
all readily available. And there's lots of companies,
yeah.
There's healthy competition within the market that is all readily available right now where you can proactively monitor, where you can set trigger points, where you can streamline an entire journey of an employee or visitor, those things, and have been around for many years, in fact.
Yeah.
So that is all now readily available.
Okay, well, listen, I was very excited about asking this question yesterday because we had a guest who previously worked at Facebook. Yeah. I'm even more excited about asking you this question.
Yeah.
AI.
Yeah.
Is my toaster ever going to try and kill me?
Honest answers, I don't know. Right, I don't. I don't.
In all seriousness, though, how do you think AI? Because I would imagine it's going to feed into what you do more than anybody else.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How do you think that AI will impact the facilities management industry in, say, the next I mean, I was going to say 5 years, but I think it's going to be within
moving.
2.
Yeah, it's moving at such a fast rate. It's unbelievable, in fact. So if we go back to what I said about the digital twins, proactive monitoring, etc., the AI is going to give us those insights and be able to determine what's going to happen next,
right,
and send those triggers. Like, it could be a trigger simply to a maintenance team to say, go and change the filter in that unit or change the light bulb. It's allowing us to better understand and join the dots. It's allowing us to sort of aggregate data far better and visualize that data. It is also enabling us to search for certain things and understand that data and simplify the data as well.
Right.
I think that's the key benefits of AI. I'm not a huge fan of robot replacing man, and I've seen some of these. If you look at visitor management, there's some of these sort of gimmick roboty things, but people don't want that. You don't. It's
like Rocky IV.
It should be an enabler, right? So I think, but though AI in the background, I think it's. I mean, we're only touching the surfaces rather of actually what that can do. But certainly, from us as an organisation and what we're doing, the huge benefits in AI is around the data aggregation.
Yeah,
and lots of people talk about data, but I think the 3 key points is to visualize, is to simplify, and streamline, based on that data and really understanding what that data is doing. Because so many people are actually monitoring things and going, well, look, I've got all the data. But then they're going, well, I don't know what to do with it. Yeah,
well, to be fair, they generally don't have the time to be able to sit there and just go through it.
You don't want to be looking at all this
not
data.
Everybody is a data analyst. So what you're effectively saying is that AI, you think will become a tool to allow us to rationalise that data far quicker and action any outcomes as a direct result
Absolutely,
of it.
Yeah. I mean, if you we're working on an opportunity actually for a telecommunications company for their data centres,
right?
And we're putting some CCTV, which quite straightforward. But then the options, the data is going to be in the cloud. But do you have just standard you're recording the feeds, or do you have a tool that's got the AI that actually I can say, right, I need to know to search for this person with this hair colour, with this item of clothing, this time of day, and this trigger. And the AI is just going to do it for me.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not having to search through 24 hours of footage.
Yeah.
The AI just does it.
Bit of a worry if the government looks at it, guys.
Absolutely.
It's not a bad idea, is it?
But there's also, I mean, this same technology, in fact, that we've deployed within football clubs, where actually it enables you to look at multiple camera feeds across different systems.
Yeah.
So, for example, for this particular football club, that they have direct access into the police, and then they can view their feeds. The police can view their feeds as well as their own, and various buildings within the area within this particular city.
Yeah.
And the great thing for that is, like, if you look at say football hooligans, where the police already know they've just gone to that pub and completely vandalised it, and they're on their route to this particular football club.
Yeah, to the match, yeah.
And then they've already, through the AI, can search exactly what those individuals are. The police are giving the trigger point to the football ground, and then they can then determine, and they're looking for them, and they can map them all the way. So then they're not coming in that football club.
Right.
Yeah. And then if there's any instance in the football club, they don't have to go through all of the footage.
Yeah.
They can literally just go, right, I know that this person was wearing a red jumper, they had dark hair, then they can get that feed, send it straight to the police. Literally, probably by the time they've left that football ground, the police are waiting. They know exactly who that individual is.
There must be, there's got to be like opportunities for error within there, though, because there's lots of people in red jumpers with brown hair. Do you know what I mean? So, is the camera technology at a level now where because there's this whole thing, I used to work in security for a significant period of time, and footage for it to be utilised in a prosecution has to be of a certain standard, for example.
Of course.
Okay, so are we potentially infringing on people's rights if we stop them going into a football club, for example, but they aren't the individual that was in the red jumper trashing the pub? So how do we? And it's an interesting, I don't know, but how do we ensure there's a standard that's maintained? Because you have to ensure that everybody has the same category of camera that would be of evidential quality.
Yes.
And there's an investment associated with that.
Yeah.
So to me, it seems to me like that would be a long way off.
So there is dependency. So I mean, the AI bit is doing in order to make it easy to search for what your, the known object.
Of course,
for.
Like a gate or
or somebody in a red jumper. But of course, if the cameras and the quality is really poor and it's blurred and all you see is a red jumper, then you can't ban everybody going into that football.
But some individuals will, though. Come on, I mean, look, we've all been to that nightclub. The doorman is just like, come on. Some people would. So sometimes it could be used for the wrong, an individual that's done nothing wrong could be treated quite harshly.
And I'm sure, and I'm not saying that it's absolutely 100% foolproof and you're not going to get it wrong, but at least you've got the ability to monitor it and look at it proactively. So, i.e., it's a group. You know that one was wearing one colour, one was wearing another. There's these certain characteristics that identified those individuals. And as long as the footage is good, then absolutely. But at least but where the AI bit is doing the job is to narrow that down. So I can say, right, show me all of the footage of a group of individuals of 5. One had a red jumper and one had a purple jumper.
So you're narrowing,
I can narrow it down rather than just looking for hours and hours of footage and just randomly, I'm not asking it to just show me that. I'm having to look at every single individual with hundreds, thousands of people within that space.
You're kind of doing a dynamic risk assessment based on the information that's available, and you're basically, I guess from that point, that dovetails, I think, into the training that the either security professional, individual on the door would receive to make sure that it ties into adoption, I suppose, back to what you said earlier, that it ties into what that system is doing and there's clear guidelines around what you can and can't do. That kind of scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. But you've got to, but it enables you to narrow it down. Otherwise, really it's a needle in a haystack.
And what's facial recognition was quite a hot topic, wasn't it, for a period of time? I know that they trialled it in some places in London and a lot of people weren't very happy, which is understandable, I guess. What's your view on facial recognition? Where is it now? And is it something that, do you think it's going to make a resurgence or?
I think it's there. I mean, look at the airports. Obviously, that is actually, again, made our lives easier. If we're looking at, obviously it has the security element. And I think the challenge with any AI technology when you're identifying an object is being able to see every single possible angle. And what you don't want to do when you go through an airport and you've got these e-gates, is the beauty is that obviously scanning the photo on your passport, it's telling you exactly where to stand and it's looking at you face on. So that is an ideal situation for facial recognition. Where facial recognition becomes more challenges when it's a moving target in a building and then, it's seeing like my ear. So the machine learning has to see all of these different versions of you, not versions of you, but different angles and everything else. So it needs to see the top of my head, the face on, the back of my head, side, all of these things. So, that's what is never 100% when you're doing that, but they are quite accurate. But when you're face on, like the gates at an airport, then that's very easy to do. If we look at a previous life, a business that I was part of, that, we had this virtual receptionist product that had facial recognition. So but the benefits of that is that it could identify you and go, "Hi, Mark, welcome back. Great to see you. We know you love a cappuccino and a Biscoff. You're in room 2.
I do like
Off
a Biscoff.
You go. We've already permitted access, which is now sent to your phone. On you go. It's secure. The building know who you are, but then it's personalised your journey. Because it knows. But you can opt into that. A bit like where you've got another technology that we represent is Amazon Just Walk Out. So it's the technology that Amazon use within their stores.
Amazon Fresh stores.
Amazon Fresh stores.
That's to stop people stealing, is it? Am I right saying that?
There's two ways of looking at it. Stop people stealing, but also remove barriers and enable you to go in, get whatever you want, and then go away. Because it's obviously taking your credentials. But again, you could utilise face recognition that I can go in. Again, this is all about permissions. So for me personally, would I allow a supermarket to take my payment details and know my photo so I can walk in to a supermarket, not having any arguments with my wife,
Yeah.
and just walk out without all the stress. Absolutely, I would.
Really?
But that's me. I would absolutely.
See, I wouldn't because I'm a Yorkshire.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Small hands, deep pockets. So, from our point of view, all I've got is my dad ringing me head saying, someone's going to nick that, son.
No, but for me, as a consumer,
Yeah.
then the benefits to me is that I can walk into that supermarket, I can do whatever I want, and then I can walk out.
Yeah.
And of course, you do that now, right?
I understand that convenience,
Yeah.
with that, and I do think that, you know, for me personally, I think I'd get round to it.
Yeah.
It took me a while to get used to an iPhone, you know what I mean?
But the great thing is, though, it doesn't have to be mandatory, and I don't think it ever will be. So, you know, but there are benefits in being able to recognise an individual.
Yeah.
You know, that could be from a security, obviously airports.
Yeah.
There's
are
no choice.
Yeah.
There's no choice. They, you know, computer says no kind of thing.
Well, good.
If
good,
you're not exactly,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. I mean, we
obviously security is actually paramount.
Yeah.
But in terms of if you apply that within the sort of the commercial world, let's say, then I think as long as you give people the choice, and you know they understand, well, okay, yeah, we do capture your photo, but this makes your life easier. Or if you don't want to do it, it might take you a few minutes longer than everyone else, but we don't have to do it. So I think giving those options, and I think that's where the benefits of human and technology come in. I.e., you know, like a supermarket, you go, if I can either queue up for 10 minutes to go to somebody on a checkout, or I can use the self-serve technology, or I can do it far quicker.
Yeah, my wife loves the self-serve. You know, she loves that rear gunner in Asda that she can save so much time. So the Amazon Fresh concept about going in, not having to do anything, just getting what you want and then walking out, and is that a concept that like works now? It's full.
It is, and they've actually that technology that they use, they actually sell that as a standalone solution.
Right.
So again, you know, football stadiums is a great example of that.
Yeah.
Because you know you're in the middle of a match, you then want to go and get a beer.
Yeah.
You just missed 2 goals.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I can just walk up to the bar, grab a beer, and then go back in my seat because I don't have to queue up to pay or anything. Now, where was recently actually where they were doing a
now you're talking
presentation
about something I'm quite interested in.
So, I mean, again, looking at it from a common sense perspective and the way that it was sort of demonstrated to us initially was they had this example where there was a football stadium and you had all these pre-poured pints sat there and that you could just grab it and go. Now, I probably wouldn't want to do that because that beer's probably flat by now.
That's true.
But again, it's being pragmatic. But actually, what if I can go grab a can? Okay, it's not as good as a freshly poured pint. Yeah. But if I can go up, I can just grab a can.
As long as it's
really
cold.
quick, it's cold.
As long as it's cold.
You can put, you know, grab it from a fridge or a cold locker or all sorts of things. But I'm not interrupting. It's minimal disruption to my game.
That's a cool idea, actually. Like I didn't realise that was a concept.
That's a live thing. It's exactly the platform that they're using within their fresh stores. Yeah, that is a standalone solution that other customers and we you know, again, football stadiums is an area that through one of our facilities partner is a sort of a vertical for them. Right. But there's a lot of interest, particularly for that use case.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Has that been adopted elsewhere so far, or is it just in?
Absolutely, yeah. It's other retail customers,
really,
stadiums, event spaces in general. So
really,
generally where there's a public space with high footfall,
and there's no like limit to the footfall. You know, like if you were at Old Trafford, for example, and you got 75,000 people.
No, because they're not using face recognition. Yeah, they're using your debit card.
Right. Okay.
So you will scan your debit card through the turnstiles, for example. Yeah, and then you go in and buy whatever you want.
And then it's just picking up your debit card wherever you walk to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we just charge you at the end.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is very
absolutely.
clever.
So obviously there will be some kind of authentication with the bank, i.e. like, you know, a minimum amount or something.
Yeah.
You know, to say, look, make sure this person has got sufficient funds of up to 100 or something. Yeah. There will be a slight risk. If you can drink like £1,000 worth of beer and you haven't got it in your bank account, then maybe you kind of beat the system. I'm sure people could probably try. But But yeah, absolutely. These things are being used. Yeah. Environments.
Okay, and then moving on to another thing, because obviously the facial recognition caused a bit of hoo-ha, didn't it? They then sort of moved away from that. Where it's all right, we can look at your gait. Yeah, you know, which for people who don't know out there, that's how you walk effectively. Yeah. You know, who found that out?
The gate?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Who found out that we all have a different one, and what were they doing?
But I tell you what, actually, for someone who used to run, and now I'm constantly injured because I'm not fit enough, actually that helps so much.
Right.
And measuring that gait.
Really?
And yeah, my wife's a keen runner, in fact. So for knowing that and exactly how we run and the type of shoes that we needed to facilitate that is absolutely key. So
Honestly.
again, this is where the technologies provide benefit. It doesn't always have to be about Big Brother.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, it's really interesting. So what do you think is coming down the pike from a technology perspective that we don't already know of? Let's say it was you were going to invent it. You were going to invent something.
Yeah.
What would you invent? To help facilities management people, by the way, not just...
Yeah.
What would you do?
At the moment, I think the key thing is consolidation.
Right.
Is rather than trying to reinvent the next thing. And I've learned from having a business that first is not always great. There's that whole old saying of third, not first. So, I'm not, of course you want people to innovate and create all these wonderful things.
Yeah.
I think more of what is out there, but the ability to adapt it and consolidate. So again, if we look at, 2 or 3 years ago where people were buying things, individually, like, they would buy a resource booking system, they would buy a visitor management system, they would buy access control system, and then try and fight the cause of how you can get all these 3 different platforms.
Yeah, different platforms trying to communicate.
Communicating. And
that was the big issue with smart buildings, wasn't it? Like people would buy lots of different systems and then say to someone like yourself, I want all this sorted together.
Yeah.
Come in and do it, but just don't charge me loads of money. And then you have to go back and say, you've got to buy new systems for everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because you might have customer A absolutely not wanting to integrate with customer B. And I've been there. And, so actually, or one of the great examples is landlord versus tenant.
Yeah.
Where the landlord has a system. This building is a great example of that. Yeah. Landlord has a system and the tenants then have their own systems. Yeah. So you're duplicating the process, which is really frustrating for the user. Yeah. And the landlord's going, well, look, it's my building. This is my system. Do whatever you want. And then it's just not good for the tenants, then visitors rather. So whereas you look at workplace apps now, and they tend to have all of these things already. So they have the visitor management, the resource booking, the occupancy data, and all of these things in one platform. And actually, some of these providers, it's cheaper just to buy that platform that does all these different things than just one individual system that's just doing visitor management. Yeah. So I think that's really good to see that. I mean, if we go back 5+ years, nobody wants to integrate with anybody. But no. I think particularly within the facilities world, we're still seeing lots of vendors that don't do it, particularly at hardware level. It has to be software, but as well. But I think that people's sort of openness to integrate with one another, because they realise actually there's more business to be had if they do that. But certainly workplace apps provides all of that anyway. And the very nature, most of those workplace app providers provide the ability to tailor things to the customer needs as well. Yeah.
Do you think it's incumbent on the suppliers to do more to create that opportunity?
I do, yeah, absolutely.
Because they've done it with phones, haven't they? If you look at, the new iPhone, for example, has got the is it the universal charging cable? Is that what they call it? Universal? Yeah, so because that was passed down by the European Parliament.
Well, USB-C is basically because
so there's one charger for
and the big thing was sustainability. Yeah, Apple, their biggest, one of the most wealthiest company in the world, biggest tech companies, that I don't think they have to worry about a proprietary connector. So I think again, it's knowing when to give. Yeah, and again, a big part of what we do as a business is audiovisual, and you're still seeing so many systems that are proprietary and won't talk to others. Video conferencing is a perfect example of that. The fact you still have to have a third-party system will provide that interoperability between Zoom and Teams and all of those things. It's getting better, but, video has been out since the 70s, but the hockey stick has only really happened since during COVID. Really? But, again, if we look at that traditional audiovisual world, the amount of times that a customer just can't get their head around what makes complete common sense and how to use a system and the ability to choose between different platforms, but it's not as easy as that. Yeah. I think the adoption of what's called bring your own device is becoming more and more popular. So instead of having a video conferencing system within a room that is fixed to that particular platform, like a Teams or a Zoom, but the ability you bring your laptop in and actually it's whatever's on your laptop. Yeah. And then it's just connecting to the peripherals in the room, like the cameras, microphones, and all those things. And, that trend is becoming more and more popular now. because
more cost effective, I would expect.
More cost effective, and just gives that flexibility.
Yeah. So just got obviously Teams, Zoom, explosion, COVID. Has that come on in terms of a technology since COVID, or is it always it was like that before COVID? We just didn't use it.
No, hugely come on.
It's hugely,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, a business that we developed was an audio PABX, a video PABX system. So audio where you can route audio like a call center. You ring up your bank. It says, press 5 for this department. You press 5, it forwards you to that department. You then go in the queue, and you're number 3 in the queue, and your approximate waiting time is X. You could never do that with video. Whereas we developed that platform on video is completely unique. Cost a lot of significant investment.
Yeah.
Because the idea was that you were then, you create this distributed model, i.e. banks, you don't have to go into a branch to do mortgages. You can just speak to a mortgage advisor. But if you're going to do one-to-many, you have to be able to route that traffic.
Yeah.
In this instance, video, where nobody could do it. It was so complicated. And, like I say, we invested a lot of time and effort into that and money. Whereas now you can readily do that with Teams.
Yeah.
Because the nature of the way the platform is.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Just for pittance.
Yeah.
So absolutely the video world, I think Team and Zoom have absolutely completely transformed.
Yeah.
And also COVID.
Yes.
I think there's not many certainly workplace technology companies that won't say that COVID was a huge catalyst for them.
Yeah.
Look at Zoom.
Yeah.
I mean, they just completely took off.
I'd never heard of them.
No.
Ever.
I think they sold most of their shares during COVID because they knew it wasn't going to get any better than that.
Yeah. Well, I'd never used Teams either, but it got installed on my laptop. I didn't know what it was, and I never used it. And then suddenly COVID came, and I was using it. And Teams was updated like a couple of weeks ago on my laptop, and now you can seat people in like an auditorium, which I really like.
You can. You've got these avatars.
Yeah, well, the avatars not so much, but like the auditorium thing where everyone. We did it your dad did it. Dean did it by accident, didn't he? Yeah.
But it's convenience, right? Because it's not just video.
Yeah.
You can do audio. You've got the chat. You've got obviously the whole SharePoint thing. You've got everything. It's a complete system for a business to use to communicate. Better.
Yeah, you can always say your camera's not working if you're in your underpants.
There's still lots of people don't have their camera on. You don't always. When there's some extremes with video and what they call immersive video, but you have to have eye-to-eye contact. But even now, we're moving around. You're not constantly staring at someone. Yeah. Throughout that whole time, are you? It'd be a bit daunting if you're doing that. So I think again, taking a sort of a pragmatic approach to these things. And I think at the moment as well, you're seeing a lot of trends where the office environment is trying to replicate that of the home. Soft furnishings. It doesn't have to be so formal.
Dogs in the office.
The dogs in the office, all sorts of things. So, which is really interesting. Up until probably COVID, everybody's trying to make their homes look like their office. Now everyone's trying to make their offices look like their homes. And make it that welcoming place that you don't have to sit in a meeting room in a hard formal chair. Actually, I can sit on a comfortable sofa and I can have my legs crossed and my laptop on me. And but it's the ability to be able to communicate with anybody, anywhere. I think is the key driver for these things.
I don't think we've really understood, or I don't think it's really taken root. How big the changes have been in the last 3 years. I think we'll look back in about 5 or 6 years' time and think, wow. Wow, that was massive. I mean, COVID was massive, don't get me wrong. I mean, it was hard on a lot of people, and obviously people lost their lives and things like that. It was horrible. However, I still don't. We've come back now, haven't we? And it's like it's all back to normal. But I think in 5 years' time, history will judge it as what a catalyst.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable
absolutely.
catalyst.
And there were some, for what was a very difficult situation, I think, for a lot of us, hopefully we don't ever go through it again. But actually, if you look at it, with some sort of positivity, that actually the way we work has definitely improved.
Yes, I agree.
Absolutely.
100%.
Whether you're a diehard, everybody should be in the offices, or you're someone who never wants to go in the office again, but, it's easier.
Yes.
Right. You give your laptop, or you could even a smartphone and an internet connection.
And away you go.
Away you go.
Yeah. Unless you're working on the roads or oil rig or something like that. Okay, well, listen, Sam, do you know something, right? I think this is the first time in all the podcasts that I've done that I haven't asked one of the set questions that we use, because it's been so interesting talking to you about technology and how technology can enable the workplace. Look, that's kind of the end of it.
Okay.
How have you found it?
Good.
Yeah, have you enjoyed it?
Yeah, absolutely. Very easy. Flowed. Yeah.
Oh,
enjoyable.
fantastic.
Yeah, really good.
Okay, well, listeners, listen, it's an absolute pleasure to have Sam on the call today. It's been a fantastic episode. Really enjoyed it. Thank you very much, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.